My name is Orna Ben Ami, and I'm a sculptor and artist, an Israeli artist. I create sculptures out of iron, welded iron. I fabricate the sculptures from metal sheets and metal pieces by welding, cutting and grinding or polishing. And actually, I'm trying to express myself through everyday objects that I create in iron, by trying to tell my own story or human story or somebody else's story through everyday simple objects that you can connect to and then put your own interpretation in them. I was born in Israel. I live in Israel. I love Israel. And I'm sculpting for the last 16 years only. I was a news editor in the radio in Israel, and I was in a hotel business for many years. And during these years, I had a hobby. I was silversmithing, and I made jewelry. And this is actually how I got to sculpt in metals. I started with making earrings and rings and pins from silver and gold, soldering the soft metals, and now I'm welding the metals. It's a little alike. I mean, you can adapt the techniques from soldering into welding, though it's different. But the technical background is being a silver and goldsmith. That's what I did. And I took some courses. I took 2 years at the Corcoran School of Art in Washington, D.C. We were there on my husband's assignment. And I left. When I was 40, I left everything, decided art is what I want to do. But it wasn't from the beginning. It wasn't when I was 20. I dared doing it when I was 40, so here I am. Each and every sculpture, it's a different technique. In general, different way of getting there. But what I do is I take, let's say, a flat sheet of iron or steel, if you wish, and I draw on it, I cut it, I fold it, I bend it, I hit it with a hammer sometimes, I weld to put them together, to fabricate them and put them together. And sometimes I polish the welding, sometimes I leave the welding to be seen so people I want them to see that it's iron. Even though some of my pieces are very soft and feminine, they're made of the muscular or hard material that is iron, and I want to leave the trace of the welding process in the sculpture. So that's in general what I'm doing. You know, a lot of people are asking me, why are you welding yourself? Let somebody else do it. I started by putting together triangles and circles and, you know, and it stayed iron. And then I wanted to start developing my own techniques. If I wouldn't weld myself, I will never get to the techniques that I developed myself. And I like very much when people tell me that they see that a woman created the sculpture, because I'm really trying to do it my way. And not, there are a lot of great sculptures that are creating in steel and iron, and it looks iron, and what I want to do is to take it elsewhere. And I know that I achieved this by working with the material myself. It's a real source of inspiration for me, the childhood memories. And each and every one of us brings his childhood into his soul when he grows up. I don't know, I'm attracted to becoming, not becoming a child, it's not a good point, but coming up with those memories and bring them into my art. But it's not only that, sometimes, a lot of times it's my social attitude. Let's say the open house, for instance. It was created for an exhibition. The theme of the exhibition was an open house. And what I wanted is to put this homeless and say if there was an open house to accept him, maybe he wouldn't live in a verbally open house like this. So this also is in my art, or the disparity, the differences between people, rich and poor. And so it's not only childhood, but there are a lot of sculptures that bring the childhood memories into. My personal story, and I think also this is also why I bring the childhood in, is when I was 6.5 years old, I lost my sister. She was 12. And this loss is very much deep in my soul. You can see it in 4:15 p.m., the bag, the loneliness of the child, or tearing the shirt that is cut. In the Jewish tradition, when someone dies, they cut the shirts of the closest, it's a tradition of the closest relatives in the funeral. The child in the box also shows a little bit, you can take it wherever you want, but this loss, I think, is really very strong on me, and this is also why I'm going into childhood memories. My parents had a hobby. They used to move every year, almost every year, from one place to the other. During that, I lost my sister as well, so farewelling and death are very close in my soul. I mean, it's difficult for me now to move from one place to the other. And I had an exhibition in Israel that I called Permanently Temporary, because this is what I was as a child. We used to move every year. So some of the things I packed, like the pictures on the moving sculpture, and I packed things, or the bed with the folded mattress. Someone has to leave, but he doesn't want to, so he makes everything that is supposed to be light and movable, makes it heavy and staying neither here nor there. That was the exhibition that I called Permanently Temporary. It all started with a suitcase with the roots that I looked at and I said, oh, it's me. That's what I wanted. I wanted to be a child that has a home in a place and not move all the time. From my point of view as a child, my parents were moving, so when I did the show Permanently Temporary, when I got to try to describe myself when I was a child, I put myself in a box, either cooperating with the situation or hiding or playing. Many people will think it's a Holocaust piece. Some will smile and say, oh, I was playing with boxes when I was a child, so I want to leave it open. But I call it self-portrait because as a child I used to live in boxes because my parents used to pack everything, including the children, and move all the time. I love them all. They're all my babies. Actually, there are some that mean more to me, or I see that people react more to. One of them, for example, is Roots, the suitcase with the roots. It's very Israeli for Israelis, because it tells the story of people coming from around the world, especially Europe, let's say, after the Holocaust, with their suitcases, putting roots in the ground. But at the same time, it can be the American story. You can put it in Alice Island. It's my own story, because my parents used to move every year, and I think I was a child who wanted to put roots in the ground and stay where we are. This is one example. This sculpture represented Israel at the UN 60th anniversary in Geneva. And people from different places in the world came to me and told me their story after watching the sculpture. So this is one example. Another one is Point. It's the ballet slipper on the very tough piece of iron that it bends it a little, and for me it shows the power of femininity. I'm working in an industrial area next to the welders and the garage, and so people came to me very often, are coming to me very often asking me if I make bars. And I don't make bars for windows, but one day I decided I'm going to make bars, and I went to a prison and I took photographs of bars, keys, and fences for the whole day. And from there, I created few sculptures. That's the cradle, and the apron with the bars. And then I decided I want to make a shirt of a prisoner. It's also made of bars, like lines, out of stripes of iron. And I borrowed a shirt of a prisoner, and immediately I saw it was a shirt that, like, coming out of the concentration camps in the Holocaust. And it took me there. And this sculpture is like a shirt of a Holocaust victim with the number, and the number is my Social Security, my ID number, the beginning of my number. And what I wanted to do is to identify myself with the Holocaust victims. And the ribs or the stripes are there as a prison stripes or ribs of a person, so that this is what it is all about. They say that there is no limit for what an artist can see and think. Not always I know where it's coming from. It happens. But if I go for childhood memories, for instance, so this is how I got to the photo album, for example. Looked at the photos and minimalized, and left it empty for everyone to put his own photos inside. There is nothing I can say that will say these ideas are coming from here and there. It's coming from my mind and my soul, but it's walking in the street and seeing something that will intrigue me and will come up with an idea, or taking a theme like permanently temporary and put the ideas under this title. The title brings the ideas as well. The most exciting thing for me is when someone watches my sculpture and comes up with his own story. I mean, I want people to get attracted or to be contacted to my sculptures through their own personal story, their own feelings. Some people will come into the exhibition and will say, there is sense of humor. The others will cry. I mean, it depends on where you are, what your own story is. I'm telling my own story, my people's story, my country's story, but the narrative can be adapted by anyone from his point of view. That's what I really want to happen.